Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again is my co-host Tocayo, back from his cruise. Adrian, nice to have you back, man. How are you?
Hey, dude, it's nice to be back. I am still dizzy. I still feel the earth's moving underneath me. But yeah, everything is great. Glad to be back in Central Texas, and thank God for the mainland.
I thought you were going to say you're still dizzy from that Nations League final,
Oh,
from how
yeah,
Mexico was.
sure.
Nah, but before we get into it, man, we want to say thanks to all the PPG listeners out there helping us get to 500 subscribers. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So appreciate you guys letting us be part of your listening and YouTube video watching rotation here. And we're hoping to, keep going and move on to next thousand. So be sure to stick with us here in the next week or so. We'll be doing a giveaway, and we'll be posting a video with directions on how to enter and how to make sure to qualify for that giveaway. But getting into it, Adrian, this is going to be our, post Nations League, USMNT. What we learned from that final. Just talking various points that 4 or 5 days have passed since the Nations League final, and there's many media outlets discussing various topics from USMNT, and I think we just want to kind of go through those topics and see what we learned about this USMNT squad as we approach a summer, a very busy summer, Copa America, that is the last big tournament before hosting the World Cup in 2026. Quick notes before we start. Mexico or USA now has a 7-game unbeaten streak against Mexico. That includes 2 ties. And Mexico has not scored a single goal against the USA in a non-friendly match since 6th of June 2021 when the USA beat Mexico in the inaugural Nations League final 3-2. So that is has been very, very dominant. And, USA hasn't lost to Mexico since 2019. So a very dominant 5 years for the United States national team here. And that leads us into the first topic. Is the USA the new gigante de la CONCACAF, the new king of the CONCACAF? What do you say?
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that if there's a dominant team in CONCACAF right now, it's the USMNT. Um, I think the 7 unbeaten matches against Mexico prove a point. If you look historically, right, at the participation of any of the CONCACAF nations in any of the World Cups, I think the USMNT and Mexico are the ones who have gone the furthest. But if we focus on today and now, there's no doubt. There shouldn't be a doubt in anyone's mind that the USMNT is, by not only players or infrastructure or potential ceiling, whatever you want to call it, it is the biggest team in CONCACAF.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% think they're giants of CONCACAF currently. But, we had a YouTube commenter, a listener comment, user Tran, and I agree with him. He commented that, in CONCACAF, as we've seen in the past, dominance between the United States and Mexico is cyclical. Early 2000s, 2010 was really USA dominated when USA won more Gold Cups in Mexico, when USA knocked out Mexico in the 2002 World Cup. 2010 to 2020 was dominated by Mexico. Mexico won more Gold Cups. Mexico, qualified to all the World Cups while USA didn't. Mexico had more wins than the United States in those 10 years. And now we see this turn back to the United States. But I don't think we've ever seen the pendulum go so far towards one side before. If you ignore the years before the 70s when the United States really didn't care at all about soccer, you can even argue before the 90s, there hasn't been a streak of more than 6 games or more than 5 games where a team from either side has won or not lost for that long, right? This has been the longest streak, 7 games now, 2 draws, 5 wins for either team going into this rivalry. So the pendulum is very far in the US's favor. Will it swing back to Mexico? I don't think it'll swing back anytime soon, man, especially with the amount of quality the USA has in Europe versus Mexico.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I've been thinking, because that specific comment of, I guess, the chart being super skewed towards the USMNT or in favor of the USMNT, I just cannot recall a specific period in time when that happened. And I just think that the USMNT is like at least 10 years ahead of Mexico in terms of development, in terms of putting together a more competitive team. And yeah, I think this is just the reflection of the last maybe 20 years of poor decisions from Mexico and very well or gets a very well played out strategy from the USMNT to become relevant in the football world, right? And yeah, I mean, I can see how we can mention that things are cyclical, um, but I think at this specific moment in time, I think this is going to be the breaking point where I have the feeling we're going to see a huge dominance of the USMNT on this region for the next, at least 2 or 3 World Cup periods.
Yeah, big statement there, man.
Mhm.
Some as we continue, some players and not some players, some commentators are stating that, and some commenters, and just so if you follow at all USMNT Twitter, and even some commenters in Mexico, some periodistas are commenting and saying that. Le queda chico CONCACAF. CONCACAF is small, too small for Mexico. For USA. USA has outgrown it. And this is something I don't agree with. I agree that USA is the current kings of CONCACAF. They're the giants of CONCACAF currently. But until USA can go and consistently win away from home against Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, etc., I don't think it's going to be they're going to be too big for it. Some players, people are saying that they should move federations and just like calm down, pause for a second. Yes, USA is better than Mexico currently and better than the other teams in CONCACAF, but like imagine these teams trying USA or Mexico. Imagine them trying to qualify from a World Cup like from CONMEBOL. They'd never qualify. So yeah, USA is the current kings of CONCACAF, but I mean, still they're struggling against Trinidad. In Trinidad, they're struggling. They haven't beat Mexico in Azteca. They've tied, but they haven't done an Aztecaso in an official match. They haven't they've struggled against Panama, in Panama. So until USA can constantly go to these countries and win away from home, that there's no way you could say that CONCACAF is too small for the USA.
And I agree with you. I think a lot of the people who are saying this either they don't really understand or they have very poor historical context of football in general, right? And they are just full of optimism for the lack of a different word. Because I think for anyone to say that the USMNT should be moving on to a different federation or just putting a statement saying like, "Hey, CONCACAF is now too small of a pond for the USMNT to become a better team." We gotta wait until the summer, dude. I mean, they're gonna be facing Uruguay, they're gonna be facing Brazil, hopefully Argentina in the final. I mean, you name it. You're gonna be facing teams that are significantly, or at least 1 or 2 steps ahead of whatever you can see in CONCACAF. I see your point of pretty much putting, or I guess asserting dominance whether away or home in CONCACAF. Um, but I mean, out of the last 3 World Cup or 4 World Cup stages that we have seen, the USMNT has only failed to attend one, right? In 2014,
2018, they didn't
2018,
qualify.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I see your point, but at the same time, I just the other side of the coin that I want to keep on portraying is I don't think there's any nation in the CONCACAF region that can compete with the USMNT in any way possible right now. Like I think Jamaica, all the Caribbean teams, Mexico, Costa Rica, all of them are so far behind in terms of developing talent and setting up their team for the next 20 years of successes that I can see how the USMNT, regardless of not being consistent on while playing away, uh, will reach a point that CONCACAF will no longer be a strong enough challenge for them to reach the next stage of performance.
Yeah, but definitely not there yet, I don't think. And you brought up the 2018 World Cup. I think that was the turning point for the USMNT, where they started just sending constant players to Europe. After not qualifying for that 2018 World Cup, is when we could track back to that being the point of maybe the federation higher ups didn't change, maybe their hiring process of a coach didn't change, but selling players at young age to Europe very really really increased and picked up at that point in time. Something that Mexico if they send players to Europe, they send them at 24, 25, 26 years old, already past their, growing prime, or, don't sell them at all, right? Or bring them back. Here in the USA, they're sending players like that kid that just is getting scouted, Sullivan, by Man City. He's only 14. And from Philadelphia Union. Just constantly every other week, you hear of a new USMNT player or youth player moving abroad, right? So that's probably the big talking point and the big takeaway. That kind of leads me to this next point we had here. We learned that having a roster of 21 out of 23 Euro players is always going to be better than having an MLS-based roster. And the difference of quality for the USA, who had 21 Euro-based players, versus Mexico, who had 10. It's just staggering at this point, man.
Yeah, again, there's no competition. I was thinking, I normally whenever I see like a USMNT against Mexico match, after it, I always think of, all right, if we make a combined 11, starting 11, how many of the players are, from the USMNT, and how many of the players from El Tri can actually, mesh well, or we'll have a freaking spot in this combined starting 11. And I think there's only two players in Mexico who can actually fight for a spot, and I will say, arguably, because they aren't necessarily ahead of any of the USMNT eligible players, and those are Edson Alvarez and Santi Jimenez. You can make a strong argument that maybe Edson Alvarez deserves a spot ahead of, I don't know, Tyler Adams, Yunus Musa, Johnny Cardoso, whatever you want to call it, just because of his regularity in the Premier League. But there isn't a big difference between Tyler Adams and Edson Alvarez, right? And then you have Santi Jimenez, who might be a very frequent player for Feyenoord at Eredivisie, but he hasn't even made a splash in Mexico yet. So
Doesn't even play.
Exactly, he doesn't even play. So I know a lot of Mexican pundits are pretty much saying like, well, back in the day, we rarely had any Mexican players in Europe, and we competed against Argentina, against Uruguay, against Germany, France, whatever you want to call it. But that was old football, dude. Today's football is way different, and just having the availability of X amount of players that are competing at the highest level, right? Just by being there, by getting trained, by having a different perspective, by having a constant competition against other kinds of physiques and other kinds of talent and a different kind of approach to the game, just puts you in a better spot. I mean, there's no doubt. And the fact that Triple G has a huge deck to go through and say, all right, if today Josh Sargent it's out, I still have someone in the name of Haji Wright who has the same numbers, the same level of performance as someone who's on fire. So, I mean, it's a great thing for the USMNT, and it's just a shame for Mexico.
Yeah, big difference. The biggest difference we've seen, as we said. Another thing we want to bring up here, Triple G, Gregg Berhalter, is he in everyone's good graces now? Personally, for me, no. I don't think he's done enough to change anyone's minds. If you loved Berhalter before, you love him even more now. If you didn't like him before, this doesn't change your mind. With these types of team, you would expect him to beat Mexico now. This is, it's been since 2019. He's doing the bare minimum. And he struggled against Jamaica. I mean, again, he hasn't done anything that, as Hurt Gomez said on ESPN Deportes the other day. Triple G has not done anything that Bruce Arena, Jurgen Klinsmann, or Bob Bradley never have achieved, right? Bruce Arena got USA to the fifth game in 2002 in the World Cup. Bob Bradley was one half away from winning the Confederations Cup in 2009. If you recall, he knocked out Spain's golden generation in the semifinal. They were on a 15-win streak and a 35 unbeaten streak, and they were leading Brazil 2-0, ultimately losing 3-2. And Jurgen Klinsmann, man, he got USA out of the group of death at 2014 World Cup with Germany, Ghana, and Portugal. So Triple G, like I said, until he's able to beat these CONCACAF teams away from home, until he's able to beat UEFA teams in Europe, the likes of Slovenia, the likes of Slovakia, Ireland, go over there and beat those guys. We're not even talking about the big teams like Germany, France. Until he's able to beat these teams consistently and not struggle against the big players, European giants, he's not going to be changing anybody's mind.
Yeah, pretty vanilla. Like if you think of a flavor from for Triple G, I think vanilla is pretty much the first that comes to my mind. Sure, I think that those who like Triple G and they rely their opinion based on his performance at the CONCACAF level. they are just lying to themselves. I mean, we can see that Triple G is super comfortable against the likes of Mexico, right? Against Jamaica, especially playing at home. Like he knows how to play against those teams because he's done it in the past, and he understands that what's the biggest or the gap in terms of the eligibility, the pool of eligible players, and how much strategy can benefit those teams with a disadvantage against the talent pool from the USMNT. But we have yet to see Triple G put up a good show and have a I guess changing history match against the Netherlands, against England, right? I think the biggest match that he has ever had has been arguably against England, where they tied 1-1. You can say the Netherlands, but I mean they got run over against the Netherlands in Qatar. So yeah, I think he still has a long way to go. I am not a fan of Triple G, needless to say, but I also don't really think that he is necessarily doing a poor job. I just think he's very vanilla. It's very mellow. It's very neutral. Like
Very
he's doing,
average.
as you said, pretty much a bare minimum and nothing else.
Yeah. And that USA England match was 0-0 back in the
Right,
World
here we
Cup.
go. Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, until he's able to take that step and beat Netherlands or beat one of those teams in the World Cup to qualify further, his legacy will always be that of being able to beat Mexico, being able to beat CONCACAF opposition at home, struggling against CONCACAF opposition away from home, but never anything else. Kind of brings us into, if you want to make the USMNT's life hell when you play them like Jamaica played them, man. Bunker down, park the bus, play a low block, whatever you want to call it, concede possession to USA, and just play on the counter attack, hoping for a counter goal. We saw Jamaica was a few seconds away from knocking out the USA using this strategy, and it's pretty shocking that Jimmy didn't try to implement something similar. We kind of saw him conceding some of the some possession in the first half to the USA. But not to the extent that Jamaica was doing it. And I don't think Mexico will ever play this like this. It's just not Mexico's style. It's never been their style to give up possession, for a whole game and just bunker down and play counter. Especially not against their arch rivals USA. But definitely, if these CONCACAF teams are watching, they'll be studying and knowing that we want to make USMNT's life hell. We're gonna have to play park the bus and just play that low block.
That is a very, very interesting approach, man. Because you're absolutely right. I think that Triple G specifically for the last match, for this Sunday's match, he knew what Mexico was going to do, and he really understood that Mexico was not going to let or cede the initiative to the USMNT, right? Because he understood perfectly that Mexico needed to win this match. They needed to prove a thing, and yeah, it's interesting to see how he actually handles this specific situation. He was not having it against Jamaica, and it was just pure luck that got him out of that gridlock. But we have yet to see, for example, against Uruguay, against Argentina, right? Who are teams that are known for not only their ability to go up front, but also to park the bus and dirty up the match. So Copa America will be a great scenario for Triple G to find a solution to those specific situations.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if USA goes down 1-0 against Uruguay and Uruguay just completely parks the bus. How, if they weren't able to unlock Jamaica with that six out without six of their starters, how will they unlock an Uruguay? And again, that comes back to Triple G. Will he be able to take over that leap and change people's minds about his coaching? We'll have to wait and see for this Copa America. Leading to Copa America odds were released by Bet365 earlier this week, pretty much saying that USA had a 6% chance to win the Copa America. That's lower than Mexico's 8% chance and tied with Colombia's 6% chance. A lot of people are arguing about this, saying how is it possible USA just beat Mexico, dominated Mexico, has dominated Mexico for 5 years. Colombia is currently on a 20-game unbeaten streak, hasn't lost since that 1-0 loss to Argentina in February 2022. How are they lower than Mexico? But I think you need to take a back approach and just kind of see the paths to the final and to the semis, right? Mexico, if they're able to get out the group, which is big if, Venezuela, Jamaica, and Ecuador, if they're able to get, that's a pretty even group. If they're able to win that group, they avoid Argentina and most likely play, Canada, Chile, or Peru, the second place of that group. While the USA, most likely, I think everybody's predicting them to be second. If they're able to beat Uruguay and get first, amazing. But I think if they're second, they're going to have to play Brazil or Colombia. So I think that's where Mexico has that slight edge. I think once they get out the group, they have a slighter easier path to the semifinal.
Yeah, and I think that it was just, I think well, I want to think it was meant that way, so you can see Mexico on the later stages against a bigger team, because the organizers know that don't matter if Mexico is on the dump, right? If they're able to make a run, people are going to show up and fill up the stadiums. They just know that. Um, so I can see how it was maybe on purpose to have a easier path, so you can see Mexico against Argentina
In the
at some point in
semifinals.
time.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to it. There's really nothing else to it. Mexico has a very even group and has an easier path to the semifinals. Period.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm pretty sure that Bet365 is basing it on. Just the fact that the USMNT is going to face a Colombia who's running 20 matches unbeaten, and then Brazil, who we all know is not necessarily the best Brazil that we've seen in the last 5 years, but it's in a period of transition. And if you saw that match against England,
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah. Then they come up.
Hmm.
For sure. Endrick and all these young stars that they have in ECS, I mean, you can never count them out. And USA, even if they somehow win the group, assuming Colombia gets second, they have to play Colombia. So it's tough. If they're able to get past the Colombia or Brazil, I think it becomes easier for them to get to the final. But to get there, it's going to be tough. So what's next for the USMNT? This summer before the Copa America, they play a friendly against who they might be possibly playing after the group stage, Colombia on June 8th. And then the All-State Continental Clásico, they play on June 12th against Brazil, the other opposition they might be playing. So they're definitely going to be familiar with these two teams going in the Copa America. And I think that can serve as a big either motivation for the USA if they get a good result, or just a really big downer if they get just dominated by either of these teams or both of these teams. A
Yeah.
big slap in the face. But definitely things are looking up for the USMNT here. A good win for them in this Nations League match. But now it's the real test for this summer, Copa America.
Yes, sir. I think those two matches are going to be a good sparring for them. I assume they're probably going to be, rotating players just so they don't, give away a lot of things. But yeah, two good matches.
Yeah. Well, Adrian, man, as we wrap up this episode, brother, where can our listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Instagram. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, be sure to follow us on Instagram and let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the current state of USMNT after that great win against Mexico in the Nations League final? How excited are you for the Copa America? Can't come soon enough. I know Adrian and I are very excited for that. We're going to try to attend some of those matches here in Texas. But and again, thank you so much for subscribing and listening to us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, here on YouTube. Trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark here as soon as we can. Again, stay tuned for that giveaway, and we'll be giving details on that here shortly in the next week or so. Adrian, man, glad you're back. See you in the next one, man.
Take it easy, man.
See ya.
See ya.